Again, this is our third session on regulating communication technology. What we're going to look at here is the key areas of regulation. That's the focus of what I'm going to talk about here in the next few minutes. Here are the 5 basic areas: privacy, security, competition, access, and content regulation. These are 5 areas that they're mostly concerned with, the FCC and the government in general, in protecting, or I should say, in creating regulations. Privacy laws set strict standards on how companies collect, store, and use personal data. They empower users with rights such as data access, deletion, and control over consent. Security, we mentioned high cybersecurity measures aim to protect communication networks and users from attacks and identity theft. Governments enforce protocols for critical infrastructure such as financial networks and public utilities. Competition is always a big thing in the United States. But anti-monopoly policies prevent tech giants from dominating markets. This happened when AT&T wanted to be in the computer industry in the 1950s. Said, no, that's too much of a monopoly. And many people fear there's monopolies going on now, although we have several big companies that do pretty much the same thing in terms of what they sell: Google and Apple and Meta, etc. The regulatory bodies monitor mergers and acquisitions to maintain healthy competition. Got to make sure that companies aren't merging. I noticed that Warner Brothers is going to merge with the Netflix, or they're trying to. They have a thing out trying to get their stockholders to vote for it. Okay, access. Talking about network neutrality, because if it's even, you may not. Some of the people may get on. So there are broadband programs, rural broadband programs, that ensure that the underserved communities have affordable internet access. And so we bridge the digital divide. The digital divide is the idea that some people have the technology and have the knowledge, and other people don't. And so in the digital divide, the concept is it's divided digitally. In other words, if we're on everybody's listening to what I'm talking about, including myself, we're on the sort of the good side or the positive side of the digital divide. We have access, we know how to use technology, etc. But there are many, many people throughout the world who don't. And the digital divide is about that. So anyway, bridging the digital divide is critical for equity, equitable communities in education, employment, healthcare. And finally, content regulation. So governments and platforms collaborate to moderate harmful content such as hate speech, disinformation, and exploitation. Now, however, you have to keep in mind that the efforts often spark debates over censorship and freedom of speech. People think this is not hate speech, this is disinformation, this is my opinion, blah, blah. So it gets really tricky. But those are your 5 basic areas. So privacy and data collection, examples of the laws. Well, I mentioned the GDPR. Europe imposes heavy fines for noncompliance, while the CCPA, the one I mentioned for California, grants Californians the right to opt out of data sales. In other words, you can take all your data out of any kind of sales transaction that may be taking place between people who have your data. Challenges. Companies face difficulties in managing cross-border data flows due to differing international laws. It's impossible. Every country has different laws, and every country is trying to do their own internet monitoring, and it becomes a morass. Balancing innovation and rights. Regulatory frameworks must ensure companies can innovate without compromising the user privacy. This is why Mark Zuckerberg is brought to Congress all the time and questioned, because it looks like his company has created frameworks not regulatory frameworks, but the Congress is create regulatory frameworks that ensure the companies can innovate, but not at the expense of the ordinary user. So the rise of AI is a big deal in education, especially. We have all kinds of problems with that. And biometric data introduces new risks such as facial recognition misuse and deepfake technology. Deepfake technology, of course, is when you create AI characters that are real people, pass them off as doing whatever you're going to show. It's a problem. Okay. Key measures. Governments and organizations establish encryption standards, such as end-to-end encryption for message apps, to protect user data. And then we have cybersecurity frameworks that, like NIST, which provide guidelines for assessing and mitigating risk. The government's role here is active to monitor and protect critical infrastructure. That's what the government's supposed to do. Protect critical infrastructure, including communication networks and healthcare systems. Healthcare systems are always at risk. I got a notification recently that my healthcare system had been compromised. Once again, that's not the first time. Now we have a national cybersecurity strategy which outlines for enhancing national defense against these cyber threats. And more we feel like they come from out of the country, that coming from the United States. They may be known by the governments, so it becomes very, very difficult. Okay, now in business, we want to prevent monopolies, but we want to encourage innovation, which is tricky. Organizations like the FCC, US, and the Ofcom, which is UK, oversee market dynamics to prevent anti-competitive behavior. That's what they're trying to do. Prevent people from not being able to compete. Case studies. So when AT&T broke up in the 1980s, it redefined the telecom industry by fostering competition at low cost. That was the whole point of a lot of the lawsuits, and they had a big. We'll talk about that when we talk about telephony with AT&T, and in 1982 or 84 we broke them up into 7 companies. 7, we call them baby bells. The global challenges addressing the markets of dominance of the giants like Google and Amazon requires coordinated international efforts, because these are international companies. These are not just in the United States. So global challenges, we have to get coordination in the prevention of monopolies and innovation. So bridging the gap, the goal is to achieve universal access to high-speed internet to promote equitable participation in the digital economy. I should point out that in 1934, when we had the first Telecommunication Act, AT&T was told they could be monopoly, but the trade-off was they had to make sure, they had to guarantee that they would provide service, telephone service, to everybody in the country. That's what's called universal service. Everybody in the country means 95% of the people, and apparently they did it, although not everybody took them up on it. Okay, we have Connect America Fund, which is in the U.S. is subsidized broadband in underserved regions. We're lucky here where we live. We have plenty of connection. A lot of people don't. High cost of infrastructure, and fiber optic cables are very expensive. Geographic changes in rural remote areas continue. They've always been there. One of the strategies is, like they do in developed countries, use satellite. Another one is companies, it's like this, like Google trying to put fiber optic cable in a lot of different cities for internet, so everybody have internet connection. But one of the problems locally with people who are in the business that want to sell this rather than have Google go in and do it for free. So there are barriers. There's really high cost of infrastructure. Ideally, what will happen is what some places have already done, and that is you wipe out the fiber optic cable, and what you do is you have it just go through the air. There's a problem with that because the same problem they had when they first introduced radio, that you got a curvature to the earth and you got to figure out ways that you can go around those curves. And also in the larger cities, how you get through big buildings. If you're downtown and you're trying to do a wireless connection to a building, another building that's on the other side of a big building, how can we get through there? So the idea is there, they just haven't got the technology yet. So like satellite-based internet services like Starlink aim to bridge gaps where traditional infrastructure is impractical. Not just Starlink, but just companies in general that are in the satellite-based business, they can install many dishes and again, many customers without having to go through some of the other infrastructure costs that we have, like running fiber optic cable. Sorry about that. I just wiped out something here next to me. Okay, so how do we manage the content in the digital age? Whether harmful content includes hate speech, information, online harassment, and child. Those are the main ones. Those are the issues that we are afraid of is in the content of much of the stuff in the digital age. So social media implement community guidelines while governments introduce laws to enforce compliance. They introduce laws. The fact is, can they enforce the laws? And that becomes, a problem for them. But those are two issues that we have to face. Free speech is another issue, striking a balance between content moderation and preserving freedom of expression is a contentious issue. Many people think you're doing censorship if you are wiping in. So this is a problem with getting back to network neutrality. You control, say, well, we're going to give these people less bandwidth because we don't agree with their position on things. But the issue goes back and forth about who's responsible for that content. If there's illegal content, pornography, for example, or child pornography especially, who's responsible? Is that the USB, the internet service provider, or is it the person that owns account? Who's the guilty one there? And you have to be careful when you start. That's the problem that Trump had with Twitter. They kicked him off of Twitter, and he thought it was a freedom of speech concern. Many people agree with him. They didn't think so. They thought that it was, spreading too much disinformation. So we have tech approaches. AI, of course, is the main thing that we're trying to use. This is a tool that helps to detect and remove harmful content. But of course, it has its own biases and errors. The people who create the AI, what are the political positions? Okay, so are they going to just entertain people? My experience with the bots, of course, is that they tend to be very nice and they tend to be more liberal. I would say that. Sorry about that. Sorry, somebody's called me. Didn't have my. Yeah, but AI has its own biases because many of the bots tend to be more on the center, to the left center, which is no big secret. One on X isn't, but most of the other ones are. Okay, so what are some of the new reactions? Well, rapid advancement, AI, chain, and IoT, which is Internet of Things, we will talk about later, challenge existing regulatory frameworks due to their decentralized and complex nature. They're not in a certain location. They're all over the place. They're decentralized. And there's no one place we can go to say, let's stop this AI. No, I'm sorry. It didn't work that way. There's a bunch of places. And we're not sure where all of them are, actually. So, globalization, the interconnected nature of digital platforms necessitates harmonized international regulations. We have to agree and we have to abide by what other people in in Sweden or in Great Britain or even in Mexico or Canada. We have to have international cooperation if we're going to do anything in terms of globalization. And of course, there's always the ethical dimension of this, which a lot of people like to ignore, but you got to address the societal impact of emerging technologies. We study this. We have a theory we're going to talk about, which is technology determinism, that talks about how technologies, how severe they can impact society and actually change society. It's something that we have to look out for. But also, I mentioned here, job displacement is an issue, and ethical AI usage, which we start at the university level, telling students, use AI, just use it ethically, which means you don't have AI write your papers. Okay. So my example issue is net neutrality. I mentioned it a second ago. The principle of treating all internet traffic equally to prevent ISPs from favoring certain content or services. The debate is, supporters argue it ensures a level playing field, while the critics claim it stifles innovation and investment. Because I'm spending a lot of money on you and you're using my service, if I could charge you more for using more of my bandwidth, I could then use that money to do something else, maybe improve my services. So the consumers benefit from unbiased access to services, but ISPs face restrictions on how they manage network traffic. Like I just said, is the ISP going to be responsible if I porno on my account and spread it out? Well, is that fair? If we're going to make and if he can't change charges, is that fair? And a lot of people say, no, it's not. But a lot of other people say, well, we don't want we want unbiased access. So you can see there's a debate there. Countries vary in their approach to this, of course, with the EU maintaining strong protections while the US has been shifting policies. And we shift policy just about every time we change presidents. Or actually, we should when we change the party of the president. So Obama was president. We were very much into supporting net neutrality, but since Trump has been president, he is not in favor of network neutrality. He's in favor of being able to charge some people more. So it's a hot issue. It's a very interesting. It hasn't gone away. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. Okay, so what do? Regulations is essential. We have to ensure customer protection, fosters innovation, addresses emerging challenges. We have to have it. Some people don't like it. We have to have some degree of it. The question is how much. Okay? Policyholders must focus on privacy, security, access, and ethical considerations. And the definition of what those things are everybody doesn't have the same definition. So what some policyholders think is privacy concerns, others don't. So governments, industries, and civil societies must work together to create effective and favorable frameworks. They keep trying to do this. It's not always easy because industries and the government have fair access to, if you compare them to what the normal citizen has. So stakeholders should proactively engage in shaping the future of communication technology regulation. Stakeholders are all of us. So we need to be involved and pay attention to what the laws are, and that our congressmen and our leaders at all levels know what we feel about what we should and shouldn't do in terms of regulation. Okay, so I can stop there. We finished talking about communication technology regulation. We'll move on from here. See you later.